Hi, guys. Welcome back to We Should Talk. Today, we are talking about a really hot topic, family estrangement. We're going to talk about our own personal stories, and we're going to dive into what it's like to grieve a family member who you no longer have contact with, and also what it's like reconnecting with someone after estrangement. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. We are here. Hi, Amber. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Hanging in there. Hanging in there. Just
Yes.
That's probably what I'll say every week for the next 2 months is we're hanging in there.
The
Just
heat wave.
heat wave, feeling very pregnant, and we're moving at a pace that works for me, and yeah, just taking it slow where I gotta take it slow, but moving,
Good.
literally physically moving about slow, but that's all right. It's got a heavy little guy in here, so
I was gonna say you need to
yeah,
just take it slow. There's no
yeah,
rush right
yep,
now.
exactly. That's
No
what we're doing.
urgency.
Yep, I know. I actually even decided today, I'm like, I'm going to take my client calls from this couch and not my desk chair because I'm going to be more comfortable like that and can put
Love
my feet
that.
up. So that's what we're
Yes.
going to do today. How are
Very
you?
nice.
How has your week been going?
It's been going really good. I have family visiting, so
Okay.
we've been doing a lot of just fun family activities. Today's the only day that I'm working, so I
Okay.
took the rest of the week off, and it's been
Nice.
really nice.
Oh, good. Good. Any activities
Yeah.
that stand out?
My little brother's visiting with
Uh-huh.
my nieces, and
Oh,
so we go to Cake Bake Shop
oh,
every time they come visit. It's a, kind of
fun.
a tradition for us. So I went
Uh-huh.
back and I looked at the pictures. The first time we went was in 2017. My
Oh,
niece was 3, I think.
oh,
No, maybe
uh-huh.
no, yeah, she was about 3 or 4. And now she's about to be 13. So
My
just really,
gosh.
I think that that's always just a memory for me. I love that tradition of ours, and it's so sweet.
Yes.
And just seeing her at 4 versus now.
Right, right. Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
It has to be
But
so fun too, like being, of course, a mom of all boys, to have a
yeah.
niece to do some fun, you know, girly things with too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And we always take a cousin picture. So we took a
Oh,
cousin picture yesterday before cake bacon. There was a
so
lot of us
fun.
because more of my cousins were visiting from California too. So we got to get like
Fun.
all of us together. And
Oh,
so, yeah, it's been really special. It kind
that's
of
so
reminds me
great.
of Jenna Kutcher talks a little bit about cousin camp. And she's like,
Hmm.
every year, my parents have all of the grandkids over and they get to do whatever they
Hmm.
want for like 5 days, or maybe it's just like a weekend or something.
Right. Yeah.
But it just like warmed my heart so much. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
love that so much. And we
Yep.
don't really have grandparents that do that. But like when
Sure.
we take the picture and when we're all doing these things together and we're all at the pool, I'm like, this
Yeah.
kind of feels like that cousin camp. And
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
it's been
Yeah.
our version of cousin camp this week,
I
and it's
love
been really
that.
fun.
Oh, I love that you mentioned that because I feel like that has come up on my feed a lot. I've been seeing this cousin camp everywhere, and I've literally been, trying to convince my mom to do it. I'm like, I think you need to do a cousin camp. I'm like, but I'll be your helper. Like, I'll be the helper in the camp counselor of leading cousin camp. But
Oh
it's
my
just
gosh,
like
I love that.
these kind of things are such like, and she and I talked a lot about it. I'm like, it's such a nice way to build memories. Like these are what the kids are going to remember. Like I remember when my
Mhm.
grandparents took us to, me and my cousins to do all these fun things. And like that, those are like, all my cousins and I talk about those being such positive memories. And we feel being on the older end of the cousin crew that we have, like we always feel bad that the younger crew didn't get the same experience because my grandparents getting older, and that's so important, right? It's just such a nice intentional way to
Yes.
create memories. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
love
Do
that.
your brothers have kids?
Yes, they each have three.
Oh, so
So
you would have a really big cousin camp.
oh yeah,
Your
yes.
mom would definitely have her hands full for sure.
Need a little extra support for sure. So I'm like, well, we'll do it. And but it's nice. We have this like lake house space that everybody can go to and we can be at. And so that is our goal to make it happen, ideally by the end of the summer. So
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
special. I'm so all about that. Like those intentional rituals, traditions, things that
Hmm.
really like increase those levels of connection in the family
Yeah.
system. I just
Uh-huh.
love building those. And especially because
Yes.
I was really close to my cousins growing up.
Hmm.
And we didn't really have any things like that where our family wasn't like huge on traditions, but we were just
Hmm.
close just because of our circumstances. And
Sure.
so now our kids are really close. Like my cousin's kids and my kids. I mean, my one cousin, we're like practically siblings. So
So,
like
yeah.
we all of our kids are really close. So
Oh,
making that intentional time for connection and just memories is so freaking important. And I
so,
love
so,
doing
so
it.
important. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And knowing too, like I think, and this really like actually gets us, kind of leads us into what we wanted to talk about today, which is actually family estrangement and what
Yes.
that
Oh,
feels
it's
like. And
going
of
to be such a
course,
juicy topic.
yes. And of course, we're talking about family connection, but it also just
Yeah.
shows that like how intentional you have to be to create connection. I think especially in today's day and age too, where
Yeah.
like everybody is kind of more isolated and siloed and in
Disconnected.
there. I think there's always this assumption that it just like naturally falls into place. Like it just happened. But
Oh,
it's
such a good point. You're so
right.
right.
But there
Yeah.
has to like be so much intention behind it, especially right, like every family system has different expectations, right? There are family systems
Mm.
where it is like times of togetherness are so built into like their life as a family. See that in my sister-in-law's families actually a lot. They have so much built in. This is just normal. This is what we expect. And I know that like my family feels different, where it's like we have to work harder to do it because it isn't as natural, given there's a whole host of reasons as to why it's harder. But there has to be more intention around it, which I know for me at times feels frustrating, or like I have a lot of grief around, oh, I wish it was just easier. I wish it was just more naturally here, which I know a lot of people feel and understand
Mhm.
that feeling. But then I always
Yes.
remind myself of like, okay, if I want that, then like, all right, let's be intentional about it. Like, let's
Yeah.
create it. Let's
Oh,
make it happen.
yes. I love that you named that because that's so true. There's like holding both the grief of not having that family system that's like, this is
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing, or we don't really have a matriarch in our family. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have, so I find myself really jealous over people who I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
your parents are still super involved. Like your parents still host Thanksgiving, they still host the
Yeah.
holidays. Like they're
Right.
creating these cousin camps. I find that I have a lot of grief over that. And at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, what you stated, I just feel like I'm so intentional that my kids will have that. I've always
Mm-hmm.
longed for that. And so I
Yeah.
want to be really intentional in creating that. And it is a
Yeah.
lot of work and it is
Right.
exhausting sometimes. And
Yes.
at the same time, it's so freaking worth it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so definitely both ends of the spectrum for me. Like I have family estrangement and then I have family that I prioritize really
Yeah.
creating those moments with. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's true for so many people in general, but especially trauma survivors, right? Like cuz
Mm-hmm.
our worlds are so nuanced.
Right. Oh yeah. Nuance is the key. Right? There is just so much of many things all at once, truly. And
Yes.
yeah, and so if we were, I think in talking about estrangement, and I'm going to be mindful and name that we are two trauma therapists talking about estrangement, which that in itself, I think we both know, in like we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago about being content creators online, that whenever a
Yeah.
trauma therapist talks about estrangement, right, it really it hits a nerve. It hits a nerve for
Absolutely.
many people on both ends of the spectrum, right? The one end of, yes, right, I feel so seen and validated and like, wow, okay, I'm not alone. And the other end, you are tearing families apart. And right, this is, you know, so bad and awful. And I think why we wanted to talk about it today is precisely because of that. It's a very nuanced conversation that is not black and white. There is so much that exists inside of it. So we wanted to make a little bit of room to discuss that today, especially because again, it is such an intense topic and such a lonely one, right? If you're going through it, or if you've ever gone through it or experienced it, like it sucks, right? Just
Oh,
to put it
yeah. It
Totally.
sucks. It sucks so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it is so heavy. And I feel like with the conversation around estrangement and therapy, I can see both sides. Like I
Hmm.
can see instances where we are living in a world where the nuance is so lacking that
Hmm.
things like abuse, things like trauma, things like narcissist, things like toxic, right? Those types of verbiage really bring up these feelings in our nervous system and can really put us into a fight or flight mode, and in some ways hinder our connection to others, our ability to resolve or work through things.
Yeah.
And then I also know the side of working with clients, even with myself, where you've tried so many different things to communicate in a healthy way, to help the other person to understand where
Right.
you're coming from. You've tried
Hmm.
to, do backflips around trying to make this relationship work. And
Right.
finally, you're just like, this is so harmful for me. I
Hmm.
just can't do this anymore. And so I
Right.
see both sides so clearly, but I think the heart
Totally.
of most people, and especially therapists, really is like reconciliation and connection in a
Yeah.
safe
Yes.
relationship.
Yes.
Would you, I don't
Totally.
know, what do you
Oh,
think?
I agree. I mean, I agree 100%. And I think what you just outlined is there's so many stages to this process. And it's not
So many.
usually just one big event and it's like, I'm never talking to you again. There are so many stages. And that's literally what the therapy process is, right? And let's talk about it from the framing of an adult child. We're going to talk about this
Mhm.
from us as adult children, or if you're listening, you as an adult child. There's this process of you start to do this inner work. You start to unpack your childhood. You start to see the ways in which, okay. Maybe the way in which your parent could not attune to you emotionally. Maybe the way in which we might call them more emotionally immature or, right, not. And again, when we say that, I know that's also a hot topic phrase. And,
Mhm.
and, and it's not one that, I think there's a lot of shame connected to it, but it's
Mhm.
just one where it's like, okay, my parent doesn't have the emotional skills to regulate themselves, right? Like maybe
Mhm.
growing up, the parent couldn't regulate their anger or their
Yes.
sadness, and in a way that contributed to them not being able to attune to you. And here's the nuance inside of this conversation: it doesn't make them a bad person, but we will caveat there's a lot of bad behaviors that get associated with it,
Yeah.
right? A lot of
Yeah. Very
abuse and trauma,
harmful. Yeah.
right,
Very
that are
harmful
not okay,
behaviors.
right? That
Yeah.
is not okay. And as therapists, and this even goes back to our like reality TV villain conversation of we can find a lens of compassion for why this parent is the way they are. They did not obviously learn the skills and tools and resources to regulate themselves because in their generation, I'm sure obviously their parents didn't have Instagram, didn't have therapists teaching them how to do it. It wasn't normalized. And so there's a generational component. We're just laying out all the nuance here. But again, back to the adult child. If you're noticing all these things, you're aware of these things, right? There's a whole process of grief and anger of like, how could they? How could they not see me? I'm so angry. I'm so mad. And then, like you said, there's a lot of work around trying hard, right? Okay, maybe if I just do
Yeah.
this, then I'll get them. If I bring up the conversation, and I've seen it many ways. Sometimes it works, sometimes,
Yeah.
and then sometimes you're still met with the parent that can't hear you or can't really give you what you want and need, which unleashes another round of sadness and grief and anger. And it's just a really hard process. And and again, for some people, again, it's based on where you are. It's you can hold boundaries and maintain somewhat of a connection, like what we'll call low contact. For some people, right, it's what, this is for my nervous system, for my well-being, it's going to be better to go no contact, right? I can't have connection with you right now. And wherever you are on that spectrum, it's okay. And of course, it's so hard when, let's say, you choose to go no contact and with a parent who can't quite empathize and understand with why,
Mhm.
right? It brings up so much. It's so hard as
Yeah.
as the adult child there in that situation. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think something that I'll talk with my clients about a lot is just that it still hurts. Like
Mm-hmm.
every milestone, right? Every thing that happens in your life that
Yeah.
you want to share with your parent or your sibling,
Mm-hmm.
anytime you hear about them, anytime you see a post about them, it
It
hurts. It
hurts.
still hurts.
Yeah.
Like I wish I could be like, oh yeah, after this long of no contact,
Right.
you're great. Like, and
Right.
they're not on your mind or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's so important to name that it does hurt. It hurts. It hurts to be in the relationship and it
Mm-hmm.
hurts to be estranged. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to think of what is the lesser evil. And sometimes being
Hmm.
in the relationship where there is reoccurring harmful
Harm.
behaviors, reoccurring abuse, reoccurring
Uh-huh.
trauma, reoccurring drama, reoccurring patterns that
Yep.
disrupt everything in your life, it's a safer hurt to just be no contact.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
Oof. Which
Ugh.
totally, I know often, right, triggers your inner child to be like, oh my God, am I going to get in trouble? Right. Or are they mad at me? It's like, I'm maintaining this because I know I need it for me now. But there's always that grappling with like, I know I need this and this is healthy. But again, it's painful, the grief, the sadness, the just again, even the inner child wounds that still get activated even when there is distance and space and no contact. Um,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I'm so curious, have you ever had to navigate no contact with someone?
I was gonna ask you that first.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm I'm so excited to hear your stories. Your story. I'm
Uh-huh.
curious.
Yeah.
So yes, I have. Well, first off, I was no contact with my father. He left when
Mhm.
I was young and he would sporadically write letters and things like that. But a lot of his letters were very manipulative and very much I'm the victim, and that was his dynamic, right? And
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
struggled with alcoholism, so he just
Yeah.
would be sad and drunk writing. And then eventually when I could talk to him on the phone, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, just for
Mm-hmm.
my own reasons. Like he had
Mm-hmm.
left when I was really young, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, like I'm going to talk to my dad and his sister, my aunt, and then my grandma on his side. I was close to them, but then when he went, no, when he left, I stopped talking to them as well. So, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the other part of estrangement
Yeah.
and
Oh,
abandonment. Like if one of your parents, if you're estranged from one of your parents, you're often estranged from their entire side of the family. And
right.
as an aunt, that's really hard for me to imagine
Yeah.
because I feel like even if I was estranged from my brother, or if my brother was estranged from his daughters, there's nothing that anyone could do unless, the mother was just like completely like, you cannot have contact because this person was
Mm-hmm.
harmful or whatever. I would respect that. But
Right.
like, I would pursue a relationship with my nieces no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's hard to
Yeah.
imagine that. So oftentimes, like a father will leave the family system, and then the entire family on his side just completely disconnects from these children and just like wants nothing to do with them. And
Mm-hmm.
so but yeah, so I talked to them and they were all just like crying on the phone. I was like 18 and I was going through my own drama
Oh,
and mess of things of
yes.
life. I was in such a hot mess place in my life, and it was just like, what am I doing? Like I'm talking to these people and they're literally like sobbing to me and about how sad they are and how good it is to talk to me, but it just made me feel icky and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so after that, I never contacted him again and
yeah.
just decided for myself, like, I really am not going to get what I need out of this. I think
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking that the contact is going to help in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not helpful for me. And I can't hold
Yeah.
this right now. I can't hold what's going on for them at this
Right.
moment.
No. Oh no.
There was no accountability. So I think that's also a really big thing for
Yeah.
me, and that I'll talk to my
Yeah.
clients about. Like, if you're going to
Right.
reconnect with someone and establish a reconnection, like,
Mm-hmm.
has there been accountability? So in this situation, I was really the one holding space for their emotions, and there was very little accountability to, abandoning a child and all of that. So yeah. So I was estranged from my dad, and then he ended up dying when I was
Wow.
estranged from him. So I never, like,
Oh.
I found that out in like my mid 20s. And
Oh
so
my
that's
God.
my experience with that. And then with my
Yeah.
mom, I would do just limited contact at times, at
Mm-hmm.
different periods, but
Yeah.
I never went full no contact with my
Yeah.
mom.
Sure.
She
Sure.
usually would demonstrate accountability, and I did feel like overall having her in my life was way more of like a benefit to me than it was
Mm-hmm.
was harm.
Sure.
So
Wow. That is a lot.
Yeah. I
A
know. I just
lot
trauma dumped right
for
there.
no, but I mean it's real. I mean it's like again
Yeah.
so relatable this story, but again, wow, so much for you. And I'm so and again like at 18, right? Like
Uh,
such a still like you're an adult
mm,
technically, but such a young age to have to navigate that. But I mean, again, all the young versions of you having to deal with, right? Your dad's lack of presence
mm, yeah.
and how much that had to be for little you. And I'm so curious, how was processing when you found out that he had passed in your 20s?
At first, I just was like, oh, like it was just the weirdest feeling. I don't even know what you would call it because it was like it wasn't grief, but it was grief. But it
Uh-huh.
was grief that I felt like wasn't allowed. And it was just like, I was also
Yeah.
pregnant with my first
Oh.
child, my first boy, my first son, right? So that was like
Yes.
just very weird and
Mm.
surreal and
Mm-hmm.
uh yeah. And so I wanted to know how he died, and I found myself being curious about that. And I did reach out to an aunt, and she was super cold to me. You know, it was one of
Ugh.
his sisters, and just ended up mentioning like he had died alone and he was a really bad alcoholic. He had essentially died from cirrhosis that
Mm-hmm.
led to liver cancer.
Sure.
And just really cold about it. Once again, like really like guilty, like he died alone. Like, okay, this is what you
Okay.
just randomly told his daughter that's curious
Yeah.
about what happened to
Right.
him. Like it's my fault, or
Yeah, I
I
was
don't
gonna say,
know.
yeah,
That's kind of
that
the
is
way I
not your
felt.
fault. That is
Oh
that.
yeah, I know. And so
Mm-hmm.
after that phone call, I let myself just like cry and grieve over it with my husband because I realized the grief that was coming up was more so just like over my dad's story and just that like the whole
Yeah.
thing was just really sad
Just so
and
sad.
heartbreaking
Uh-huh.
and that that's okay to grieve over that, you know?
Yeah.
And even if
Totally.
I didn't talk to him, that I still felt grief that he had
Mm-hmm.
died, that there was no redemption to our story that I
I
felt,
know.
right? In that moment,
I
there was
know.
no
Ugh.
redemption to his story. It was just like sad all around.
Yeah. Oh, and like, man, what a weight of grief for you to
Ah,
hold. Like, oh, huge
yes.
weight. And
Yeah.
that the grief around the lack of redemption, because so much of what our, especially our childhood wounds are, is this hope that one day it'll
Yeah.
finally be what you need it to be. What that they'll
Yeah.
finally show up for you in the way that
Yeah.
you need. And so there's so much grief in the acceptance of like, okay,
So for that's how it
that
ended.
right, right.
But
Ugh.
there's also clarity in that in this weird way where you can finally grieve. Like it's
Yeah,
over. This is
right.
how it ends for him and for me,
Mm-hmm.
but this doesn't have to be how it ends for me. I can still heal from this and I can
Mm-hmm.
continue my own work.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, I think there is this grief of just like, or maybe just this like before I had this hope of like, maybe I'm going to have this conversation and he's going to understand everything he did and take accountability. And what if he got help? And what if he's like
Mm-hmm.
this different person? What if
Right,
he's healed,
right.
you know? Like,
Yeah.
and so
Uh-huh.
just finding out like, no, it was just all
Right.
dark. It was all
Mm.
darkness. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Ooh,
sad.
it's sad. It is so sad. And I'm curious, how has the grief process like lingered for you since? Like have you revisited it, or is it just kind of like, just kind of there, the sadness
I
around it?
I feel like it's totally gone. I
Mm,
I know a lot. I've heard a lot about how grief doesn't leave. It just changes shape.
right.
And I don't know if that's always the same when you did have an estranged relationship.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I feel like him dying allowed me to be able to fully grieve that this is over and like
Mm-hmm.
move forward in my own work.
Yeah.
And a lot of my grad school capstone thesis and everything like that was all based around, like redemption at the end of the story.
Oh,
And this idea of
yeah.
like maybe there was no redemption in our
Mm-hmm.
story. Maybe there was no redemption in his story, but like me moving forward and doing my own work and raising
Mm-hmm.
three boys
Yes. Oh yeah.
and helping other people heal that have been through the
Uh-huh.
same traumas he has so they don't pass
Yeah.
those down to the children. Like that is the redemption in the story. And so I think for me, it kind of went into
Yeah.
that like meaning making side of the grief. Like,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
ooh. this is how that ended. And that is so horrible and so sad. And
Yeah,
I get
camp.
to make meaning out of what is left. And that's beautiful. And he
Yes.
doesn't get to control that at all. And
Right.
I just get to
No.
let this go and know that my dad was an extremely wounded person
Right.
and he did some really, really bad things. And
Mm-hmm.
he broke my heart. And
Yep.
it doesn't have to end there.
Right. Oh,
So,
what a
yeah, that's
beautiful.
kind of been my
Yeah.
journey on that. It
Yes.
doesn't feel like
How.
it lingers at all. It feels just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which, I mean, and it shows, right, that you've done this processing, right? You've gone through, which again, like this is why we have to feel through these, right?
Yeah.
That we can't just push them away, that we have to feel the grief and the sadness and hold the nuance of he's wounded and he did harm and right. And I had to create space and I'm sad, right? I'm just sad at his story and our lack of redemption and this meaning making portion is so key, right? Because it's like
So
only
key.
in processing that could you move into the meaning making, right? To be able to say, okay, I'm gonna take this and make meaning out of it. I'm gonna do this differently. I love you shared a reel recently about your husband, watching him
Yeah.
be such the dad that you always
Hmm.
needed.
Oh my gosh, I'm like getting
And
emotional thinking about that. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, because it's like, yeah. Yeah,
I was so emotional watching it.
my grandfather was really mentally ill and abusive, and my great grandfather was really mentally ill and abusive,
Mm-hmm.
and my father was mentally ill and abusive, and that is ran in my line. And like, so my
Yeah,
husband doing his work and also just being the best dad and
yeah.
raising them three sons, it's like you can't not make meaning out of that.
No,
It's like,
of course not.
how is this so redeemed? It's so beautiful,
Right.
So yeah, so that's my experience with it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm so curious what yours is.
Yeah,
What is
yeah,
do you
totally.
have estrangement in your family system?
I did. I did. There were
Okay.
mine is a little different. So my family system was always just very different. It was always just felt different than others. On the outside looked okay, normal. My parents separated and when I was 14, but like
Mm.
remained friends for like 7 years. Like nothing, like my dad moved out, but like nothing changed really. Like we still did things as a family. We still like went out to breakfast every Sunday all together. Like nothing really changed. And on the outside, everyone's like, that looks normal, fine. And my personal experience with my dad's very, especially growing up, was very emotionally withdrawn, worked as a firefighter, and just like
Um,
your traditional like man who could not really be in touch with his feelings or
yeah.
really cultivate that with me, and had a lot of anger issues with like had a hard time regulating, and that in itself, like that dynamic really really impacted me, which definitely led to my good girl tendencies to just right try and be good, not have to navigate the anger, and so a lot of my early therapy work, I know we talked last week about my process when I first started, it was so much was around that of like grappling what it meant um to process what that was like for me and that it wasn't my fault, and just really starting to tease that apart. Then there was this time where like I was doing a lot of the work and then I could like bring it back and would talk to my dad a lot about some of it, and like my dad became like slowly was becoming more open to these conversations, was
That's
like
beautiful.
more emotionally aware, and I was like, this is great, cool, like right, I could like say like, hey, why didn't you ever tell me you love me? And then my dad could say, I'm sorry. I was never told that. Like we had some really good moments. Then um my dad eventually in my mid 20s, maybe I was like 24, I think, my dad came out as a transgender female. Yeah.
Oh, I
So
didn't. Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
so like again, like whoa, total shift in the story, and like again, the way that I just described my dad growing up, just so what felt
Oh my
so out of
goodness.
left field,
Yes.
and so that shifted so much for our family. And like in the beginning of it, like me and my brothers, just showed up and were so supportive, and everybody was so supportive, even if this was hard for everybody as family to process and to sit with, which again is just I know a common story when someone in the family system comes out as transgender is the family processing potential grief for,
Absolutely.
for
Mhm.
the process itself, and who the the transgender person, their identity before, right before coming out versus after, and just navigating
Mhm.
that. And so that was a complex grief, right? Of like, there was this relief of like, whoa, wow, I finally get to like really know, like, I love this. I love getting to know my dad for who she really is. And wow, like this just totally puts all the pieces together for me as to why she was the way she was earlier on. It like really helped to like separate that this was never me. Like this was, she'd said a lot happening for her. It was so, I could see there was like a high that she was experiencing and coming out. And that was like just, she was on cloud nine. It was just so beautiful. Then, after a while, we're like, right, this is nobody, everybody knows, like the kind of life goes back to normal. There
Mhm.
was a lot of lows that came. A lot of lows where I felt very responsible, like for taking care of her emotionally, but there was a lot of emotional um, ups and downs and highs and lows,
For
and so
her?
for
For
her,
her.
yeah, for
Okay,
her,
yeah.
yeah.
And she was doing a lot of the processing of those with you.
So somewhat, yeah. Had was in therapy, but eventually it felt like then it kind of came to be her versus me, or her versus our family, and that there was a lot of perceived like slights and that weren't necessarily happening. But I think there's just, again, a lot, and again, I have so much compassion for the process that she went through, because whoa, it is just so much. And I think there's a lot of projection that somehow we were rejecting her,
Oh,
when
okay.
I think that was just, so much of what was happening internally based on, a lifetime of
Oh,
shame
absolutely.
around this,
Mhm.
and of course not even knowing what this was inside of her for so long. So
Yeah.
that happened in this way where she kind of removed herself from our family. and
How old
and
were you?
that was, this was like maybe 20s, yeah, still mid 20s,
Oh,
like
wow.
25 or
Okay.
so. Removed herself, which of course, like, right, made everybody really sad and angry that
Yeah.
that happened. And of course, if my experience with my dad was a lot of emotional abandonment over the course of my life,
Mm.
this was like, oh, here we are. This feels like this is the real thing, right? Feels like the
Yes.
real abandonment happening. And so it went on for a while. And even I remember the grief I had to feel around planning my wedding, and like how I always envisioned, like my dad and I'd always talked about like what my wedding would look like, and how, again, pre-transition, how my dad would be there, and we wanted to do this song and things like that. And so without the contact, I was like, okay, I have to grieve that my dad won't be there. Then it ended up, it was 2020. So wedding got
All of
postponed a
oh,
year.
oh my
Hmm.
goodness.
So there was that. And in
Wow.
in that year, I was really grappling with like, I, I just like, I feel like I need to have a conversation. I need to have a conversation with her about it. And luckily, my brothers were very supportive of it, even though I'm the one that is going to be the leader in talking about things where they're, this was like, they're like, we got one shot, like she'll have one shot here to kind of make it right.
Mhm.
And we did
Mhm.
have a good conversation where she actually did take ownership, that it was her. She knows that it was her doing, and she took accountability and understood, and was grateful that we wanted to talk and connect. And so she did come to the wedding. I did have to set some boundaries around the day that I know was hard for her. But then I think the wedding actually brought up more things, and so then kind of she went away again after that, which I think for other members of my family was kind of like, okay, I can't, right? We can't
Mm.
necessarily, like, that's just not okay. And I know, have to protect, my brothers, their kids, all of that. And then, so for me, there's a lot of sadness and grieving that again. And then it shifted for me when I was pregnant with my son. She and I did have a conversation, and it was one where I had to be very direct around if we're going to have another chance at this, you show up, but if you leave, right, if there's abandonment, like I have to set a boundary. There can't be contact because I won't put my son through that. I won't put my kids, do not want that to even kind of have to enter their nervous system at all.
Oof,
And
that's so true. When kids are involved, it's also
yeah,
completely different. I feel like that
right.
leads to a lot of estrangement. Like when your
Yeah.
kids are involved and now they're
Yeah.
the ones facing this pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Totally.
absolutely. Okay, so sorry,
So
continue.
that was a hard, yeah, like a hard line for me
Yeah.
that if anything is going to shift here. And this was a point too where I had to be okay with like, okay, I'm at this point in the process. Other people in my family are not. And that was kind of hard to grapple with, but I felt very comfortable and like this is what feels right for me. So sure, I'll have this conversation. And again, took a lot of accountability, a lot of like fully understood and could kind of reflect back how I was hurt, understood how I was hurt, understood her role in it, and was committed to showing up. And I said, okay, I will, if that's going to be the case, we can have a connection and a relationship. And that's kind of how it's been since, where she's been able to show up and be present and develop a relationship with my son. And so that's where it is. So we're not in estrangement right now, but it's not perfect, right? Again, the family, it's not all the same all around, and so it's still nuanced and complicated. But I feel okay inside of my dynamic with her because precisely there was accountability, acknowledgement, like true understanding, apology, and a shift in behavior, like a genuine shift in behavior afterwards. And this has also come with like my own kind of acceptance and understanding that she may still never become, we may never have a deep emotional connection that I've always wanted or needed from her, right? I've accepted where it is and what she can offer in the relationship, and that's okay with me. Like I feel very okay with that. And also have had this experience too, right? Of like watching my husband be this like such a silly, playful, fun dad, and then raising a boy and two, right? So interesting, right? That in our father wounds, here we are raising boys.
I know.
And seeing it, right? Seeing my son be, just his full self and be able to feel and express his emotions is so healing. And again, there's so much nuance of like all of this side by side at the same time, but it's just, yeah, it's been a complex dynamic and experience. And yeah, I think a lot about, I mean, there's so much in this, and of course it's not my story to tell, but I think about my brothers and their identities as men and how that came from how my dad was, right? And as a model growing up, and how this shift, has impacted them. And which of course, and I've highlighted before, there's this dynamic where I'm processing out loud and really in it. And for them, I think they've had their own acceptances and are showing up as incredible, amazing dads for their kids. And
I love that.
which is amazing to see. Like, it's just awesome. Their kids are so lucky to see them. And I know for them, it's like a big commitment to, we're going to do it differently. But yeah, that's all the things, all the feelings that are still present around it. But I always come back to like, what's aligned for me? How do I feel, right? Like I'm feeling like I'm operating in alignment and true to myself and very open and honest. So that's kind of where it's landed. So again, a different kind of story around estrangement that I guess I was going to say, I don't know if this is a redemption arc, but I feel like this is a bit, I think, in this, watching this relationship with my dad and my son, there is some redemption there that I can see. So yeah.
And how does she feel about you sharing this story? And so that's the complicated thing about when you are still in contact, is that then you do care how this other person, it is your story, but
Totally.
you do love and care about your parent, and
for sure,
you don't want to hurt her and this connection. So like, how has that been?
Great question. especially as obviously like become more public on and speaking about these things on this platform, especially related to childhood stuff for me. I didn't necessarily like talk to her about me talking about it for a while. But then actually, as I wrote the book, and there's, a lot of our pieces in there, the book is actually kind of framed around like my relationship with my dad and like the arc to it and how it informed my process. But I wrote it all before even telling her that, my editor's like, okay, so, legal's going to want to know that your dad knows and is like, okay with this. So she and I did have a conversation about it, and she was great. She's like, it's your story to tell. It's your story to tell. I can't wait to read it. So that was very, very validating and affirming. And of course, I mean, I know that I wrote it in a very honest but also like compassionate way, that I feel good about, even as hard as it is to talk about it out loud.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing it today.
Yeah.
When you started to, I was just like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of alerted me just to how much you don't share about your
Uh-huh.
personal story, of
Yeah,
course, and
totally.
everything that's happened, but it also
Yeah.
makes me even more excited to read your book. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is, yeah, like it's very just family dynamics intrigue
Uh-huh.
me and captivate me
Whew.
so much. And I think
Mm-hmm.
something that I feel like I hear in both of our estrangement stories is, just like relationships are so messy. And
Yes. Oh.
regardless of whether or not you end up reconnecting to the
Mm-hmm.
person that you're estranged with, or you end up being completely estranged, I think radical acceptance is
Mm-hmm.
something that we all have to get to in our journey.
Yes.
That
Oh yeah.
yes, we have to feel the grief. Yes, we have to feel the anger. Yes, we
Uh-huh.
have to feel the sadness. And then we have to get to this place of like, this is my parent.
Yeah.
This
Right.
is the parent I have, or this is the
Yeah.
sibling that I have. This is who they are. They may
Mm-hmm.
never change.
Right.
This
Right.
is what they can offer me.
Yeah. Yes.
And is this a place where it's not going to continually be dysregulating to me?
Yes.
That doesn't mean it's never going to, a milestone's not going to happen or something, and you're not going to be like,
Sure.
I wish they
Right.
would have responded to that differently and not hurt. And now I
Mm-hmm.
need to tend to that. It just means you accept, like, I know that they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be able to offer me certain things that I want
Yeah.
and need. And
Right.
I'm still willing to accept that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I
Oh,
want this relationship. I want this
right.
connection. Or I know that they're never going to be able to do this to me, or they're going to continue harming me. So I need to take myself out of the equation
Yeah.
and
Right.
radically accept that this relationship is over, and it's always going to hurt, and it's
Right.
always going to cause pain, but I
Mm-hmm.
can still heal and I can still make meaning out of the situation.
Totally. Totally. I think that acceptance, it's so freeing, right? It's so freeing, whether it is right
Mhm.
full no contact, or it's freeing in like, yeah, we have contact, and I'm still right. I'll still tend to myself and know that like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, younger part of me who wished it would feel different, right? We're going to tend to you and accept what it is, of what it is here, and I'm okay with that because there is no harm being done actively,
Yeah.
right? And of course, there
Yes.
is repair, there is accountability, all of those
Yes.
things, which again, all of that is factors in how anybody's estrangement story goes.
Mhm.
Is and I know for so many, there's the longing and the need, and I think what if we kind of zoom out globally to perhaps the parents of adult children who are low contact, no contact, right? I know there's so much anger out there on the internet around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody hasn't. There was that Oprah podcast episode
I
around it.
watched that.
Yeah,
Did you?
right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which was
That was very interesting.
yeah, very interesting. And I know I wish I would have rewatched it recently so we could process it further. But I remember there being um, a lot around it. But the recurring theme, I think, with the parents of adult children is the inability, or the real challenge in being able to sit with themselves and say, yeah, I didn't get it right. I wish I would have done better. I wish I would have been more
Yeah.
attuned, right? And not this immediate defensiveness of, but I provided for you and I did this and I created a roof over your head and I did all these things. How are you
Mhm.
not grateful, right? Like I think not understanding how, yes, sure, that's wonderful, but that the point is that there has to be this emotional attunement. Like, I see how you're feeling and I'm going to meet you there. And I'm going to deal with my own complicated feelings around feeling bad or feeling shame or like I did something wrong. Because again, I think to me and where I'm so passionate in this work is like holding space for that nuance, right? Holding space for the inner child of the parent who is feeling a lot of shame and like, I did my best, and holding many things where it can say, yeah, you did your best and it wasn't enough. And we know that you didn't have the information to do more. And right, all of this, right, can coexist together at the same time, but it's very hard. That's a hard concept for many to grasp, especially if they haven't had a mirror, right, that actually like totally sits with them in that nuance and lets many things be present at once and let it be okay. And that taking accountability and repairing, right, again, is not you saying you're a bad person or a bad parent. It's actually you saying, hey, I'm going to be the parent here and actually see you and attune to you.
Yeah, yes. And I just also want to name that I think the reason why it's happening so much more often, and a lot of it involves like the boomer generation, right? And I think so much of that is that those protective arts,
Yes.
they're so good at doing what they're supposed to do,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
protect us.
Right.
They think they're protecting us, but unfortunately, like I think when those protective parts are out in such full force, there's so much shame surrounding where they could have messed up, where they could have gone wrong, that it's actually safer for them. And this is not an excuse by any means. Like, I do not want anybody to feel that I am excusing abusive behavior or trauma that was caused to you, but I just want there to be a basic understanding of that, like, instead that shame feels so painful and so harmful that they would rather like do anything else than acknowledge that shame, right? And sit with it. And that does have a lot to do with the tools that they were given. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. I mean, especially in the work that I do with CPTSD, I'm like, I feel like maturity is realizing that most of our parents and most of our grandparents probably were dealing with CPTSD because they never learned how to emotionally process. Right. They were in the midst of not having, their physical needs met. There was wars. And so I think it's also really important to acknowledge that, like that, you need to have a level of self-awareness in order to be able to reflect, in order to be able to offer attunement. And when you've gone so many years without that, it's a really hard thing to gain. So I think that has a big thing to do with the disconnect, because now, millennials, we're the therapy generation, and we're like, yes, do the work. Why couldn't you have just done it this way? Why couldn't you have just done it that way? And it's just like, well, because in my day, it just wasn't like that. And I don't know how to get there now. And so I think there needs to be a lot of scaffolding with like the boomer generation of just, you're not bad. And not to say that it's the child's job to do that, the adult child's job to do that. But just that, like, when you're talking about parts work, I think there needs to be a lot of trying to meet the exile, trying to meet the, the little part that's down there that these protective parts are like, no, you're not going to tell me I'm a bad girl, a bad boy. Like, I'm, like I did my best and I did this and I put a roof over your head,
Totally.
So I don't know. That's what comes up for me around that.
For sure. And anytime that I've had sessions with like an adult parent or an adult child and their parent, I always start there with the parent. Cause like, that's like the one thing that gets them listening, right? Like that's the part that's going to help the defensive part come down and be open to actually hearing their child. And every time, like, honestly, I love this part where I get to say, I know that you didn't get this, right? Like this is really hard for you. Your inner child is really loud and saying, I didn't get any of this. I did everything that I could, right? See, I'm working really hard. Why don't you see that, right? Like I spend a minute with them first, just this way to reduce the shame. Right? Like, and we have to reduce shame with compassion. And in the same sentence, we can say, I have compassion for your inner child. And we can still take accountability for the harm done to your child. It doesn't make you bad, right? We know where it comes from. Like, and holding both, like, I love seeing the relief that kind of comes on their face. If they're in the session with me, they're willing to do the work, right? And I know many parents don't get to that point of being able to step into the session itself, because their protective part is so big, or so, so strong.
Yes.
And so it's so real, and it is such an important part of the process of, if we're going to have reconnection, if we're going to have repair, we have to be able to speak to all of the parts that are present.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think too, the other thing that I'm thinking about with this is that I think a lot of times adult children still show up as children, and a lot of well, they do in their relationship with their parents. And so a lot of times things will bother them. And maybe the parent has been, especially emotionally immature parent is really like not receptive in the past. So they've really lived by the story of like, I can't share with them how I feel. I can't set boundaries. And I think sometimes they will just cut off because they don't know what else to do, because it's like, I don't feel like I will, if I share this, I know they're not going to react well. Or if I set a boundary, I know they're not going to react well. And I just want to name that, like, yes, maybe they won't react well, and they will get used to it over time. Like, as the system recalibrates, a lot of times, if you come in with the boundary, they might be resistant to it at first. They might use their typical techniques and things like that, right? But like, if you can stay grounded and maintain the boundary, or, with the first time you come to them with something and you tell them like what you need and set that boundary, like they might be defensive, and that can work over time. So also, I think sometimes people cut off and they don't actually try to do the work first of setting a boundary, of letting them know, like, this isn't acceptable in my house, or this is the way we're going to do it here. And exactly, because that feels too scary and overwhelming. So it's just like, I'm just going to cut off. So that's also something that I think, like, when you're talking about those conversations in the therapy room, like, sometimes parents are receptive. Sometimes parents are like pissed off about it, but they're like, okay,
I want it. Like, tell me what to do, right? Tell me what to do. I want to do better. And which is great. And I know I'm very grateful. Cause I know I didn't speak to my mom in this story, but she is someone who has her starting to do the work when I was in high school. Like, that's why I am where I am today, is like, because she started to do her processing with her own childhood stuff and how it related to my dad, and we could talk about it. And that was so protective for me, right? That was like a completely protective relationship, even though she wasn't perfect, right? Like, she's not, like, for sure. And like, I'm very lucky and grateful that she stepped into the work first. And then, which really gave me, she gave me a pillar to stand on, to be able to feel safe enough to do this work too. Because based on the emotional culture of my house growing up, like, it would have just always been terrifying to step into more, emotional openness. So the protective factor with her, on top of obviously the therapy that I talked about last week, again, and so much of this is like using your protective people, your safe spaces, your safe people does help to then maybe be able to to do the scary thing of setting the boundary, or having the hard conversation with the person, the parent who doesn't feel as safe.
Absolutely. Having those resources around you.
Yeah. That those are so important when it comes to this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ooh, well, good combo. I love this.
There's so much more. I imagine we will come back to this and continue on this conversation for sure. There's so much there, but I'm wondering if we'll make it a little lighter here in what we're loving this week. And what I'm loving this week is right here. It's this, my iced coffee with a little light vanilla sweet cream. It's been a little treat that I've been allowing myself to have like a few days a week from Starbucks. And it's just, this morning really needed it after quite a waking up every hour and a half or so to pee. So, feeling very
every
grateful.
Hour and a half. Oh my goodness.
Yes. I know that's the training. I feel like this is the parental sleep training that happens of like, nope, going to get you up.
Yeah.
And used to this before baby gets here. So, this drink is saving me today. How about you?
I love that. What is it with millennials and iced coffee? Like, I'm dying. Why do we love that so much? It's like, it is our thing.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh. Yes, I
Oh
love
yeah.
it too. Okay. I have one in the fridge for my next
Great.
client that I have at
So
12. So
good.
I'm going to just have
Love
my
it.
afternoon coffee.
Yes.
Yes. So what I've been loving, I mentioned taking my niece to the cake bake shop. And
Hmm.
if you have you ever been
No.
because it's in
Mm-mm.
Indiana. So I wasn't sure if like you come here sometimes. I know that your guys' did you say your lake house is like on the
It's
outskirts
it's
of
in
Indiana?
Long Beach, Indiana. So it's like
Oh.
right across the border of Indiana and Michigan.
Okay. Well,
Hmm.
if you have ever have the opportunity to go, or if any of the listeners have the opportunity to go, there's one in Disney World as well, but there's two
Okay.
in Indiana, and it's just the most magical, cutest, like little girly place, and
So good.
it's just absolutely beautiful. She takes like such good special care of each
Oh,
detail, and so having a meal there, the food is actually really delicious as well. Having a meal
fun.
there is just really special. And they do this thing at the end called pixie dusting you. And
Oh,
so they go and they tell this little story about the cake bake shop and how all the animals come alive, like when nobody's there and all of that. Then like put the little like glitter all over
oh, I
you.
love
And it's just so
this.
fun. And so I really felt like when I go with my nieces and when we
Uh-huh.
went yesterday, I really feel just like my inner little girl come out, and I
I was
just feel
gonna
like it's
say.
such a beautiful experience. So if anybody has
Yes.
the opportunity to go, I
Oh,
totally recommend it. It's such a beautiful place.
so fun. Well, yeah, I was like, my inner child just lit up like, oh my God, pixie dust, like glitter. Great.
Yes.
Sounds
And
so
glitter
fun.
is like all on the food.
Oh my
So
God.
that's fun too.
Edible
I'm
glitter.
like, yes, I love edible glitter. It's so
So
fun.
good.
So
Oh,
yeah, that's what I'm
that's
loving this
amazing.
week.
Oh, cool. Cool. Well, I
Yeah.
have younger girl cousins who are in your area. And so maybe a plan a time to come out that way and
You
go with
have
them.
to.
Yeah.
You have to. It's so much
Oh,
fun.
I love it. So
Yes.
fun.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
great combo.
yeah, I
Yeah.
hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm
Oh,
just so
thank you.
grateful for
You
you
too.
for sharing more of your story with me. I
Of
loved hearing
course.
it and
Thank you.
just
Thank you
really
for
beautiful.
thank you. And thank you for, always sharing your story and vulnerability. That helped me to feel comfortable and safe to share mine too. And so thank you for that. And thank you all who are listening for your support and kindness and
Yeah.
care for us as we share and get more vulnerable here, because of course we want to model that for you too. Well, thanks,
We'll see you
Amber.
guys later.
See you next
Bye.
week.